Okay, so after shooting the last video, I actually had to pause around the time when I made the databases. So I'm going to be remaking them in this one. You guys won't be able to see it because I'll have edited it out by now. But there's actually two more things that we need to fix or just alter. I decided to make a Word doc of some of these bug fixes. At least for this lab. Hopefully there won't be too many as we go forward. So there were two little annoying things that I found when I was just prepping for the videos. And that's one, there's no checkbox for A_I. What this is an auto increment function. This allows us to set things like a field for a ID that will automatically increment or give us a value for each new entry. So when we make a new user, they automatically get an ID starting from 1. So 1, you put in another one, they get 2, so on and so forth. And that makes it very, very easy to not only find unique records in our databases, but it'll allow us to use those as our primary keys. And I'll show you what that means in a little bit. But the easiest way to fix this, for some reason, when Firefox renders the checkboxes, they render out of place. I haven't found a good way to change that. I tried fiddling around with the settings. The easiest way is to honestly just go ahead and download Chrome. So just like with how whenever I get a new Windows computer, and I go on Internet Explorer, I'm going to go and find Chrome first thing. And my internet cut out. That's fine. While we're doing that, I just want to pull up another little error. So when you go in phpMyAdmin, you may get this weird red long error that looks like this. It'll look something along these lines. And that happens when you go into a table and you try and browse the data that's in that table. As you can see, that browse button's been highlighted. Someone clicked on it. The way to solve this is to just open up a terminal. And we're going to go ahead and paste that in there, just like that. We're going to copy and paste this. So the fixes that I made for the MySQL no privileges error thing for phpMyAdmin is right here as well. If there's any issues, then I would say just contact me. I believe this will solve the issues, though, as it is. Make sure that you do this flush privileges, though, otherwise you'll be right back at it again. So what happens is, just like with this command, at the bottom, oops, you'll paste in the command, and you'll be good to go. You'll be right in MySQL, and the way that looks is you have to use sudo. This is a new feature as of like 2016 or 2017. So he said new in quotes. What is going on right here is this is the program, MySQL. -u is the user, root is the particular user that we're doing, so top level privileges. And this is the database, MySQL. So when I hit this, it'll ask me for the password, which is the one that you gave. Hopefully it's hopefully it's CS230 lab. Probably mistyped that. My mistake. It was actually CS230 for the password for this one. Anyway, you'll get this prompt, and that's where you'll plug in these SQL statements right here. Basically from the pound signs on. The pound signs indicate comments that I've made. So just open up a terminal. These ones are all done in the MySQL section right here. When you're done, you're just going to hit exit. and you'll be right back there. So, right. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to download Chrome, accept and install. You're going to get the top one. It should be pre-selected for you. And you're just going to do open. Go ahead and install. Put in whatever password you have for these boxes. Remember, it's CS230, which you can also make your life a little bit easier, and just remember that by going in the settings right here, and in the description you can put password. Oops, if you want to spell it correctly. And it's just going to be CS230. It's the same as the username. And you can make some other notes in there as well. If you check right down here, make sure that you have all selected. You'll see Google Chrome. It should be on the first page, and you can just right click and you can add that to favorites. I already have it on there. So if we go in PHP My Admin here on Firefox, when we go into our databases here, if we were to make a new database, we'll specify the database as CS230. Please keep the naming convention the same. This is so that when you send me your code, I can run it very easily without having to modify anything. That includes table names and fields. You're going to select where it says collation. This is just like what type of data type, more or less, we're going to give it. It's going to be UTF-16, and it's going to be general CI right here. This generally causes the fewest problems. There's a bunch of other ones for different languages: Japanese, Korean, Esperanto, whatever. Arabic, I think, is in there as well. All right. So let's say we were to create a table for our users, right? Going to have 6 columns because we're going to have the user ID. We're going to have the first name, the last name, the password, their email. Wait, user ID, first name, last name, username, email, password. Yeah, 6. And you're going to hit go. Now, okay, for some reason, this is displaying here right now, and that's fine. So that's cool. If you run into an error where you can't see this little checkbox for AI, then use Chrome. I don't know why it's showing up in Firefox now. It wasn't when I went to do this before. So just be aware that that may be a thing with some tables. So for the first field, it's going to be UID. That's never going to be something we're going to change. You're going to check this AI box right here, and you're just going to click go. This is going to become our primary key, which means it's going to be our identifier for every single record, basically acting like a social security number for each person, except it's only like a couple digits. So we're going to do the first name, the last name. I'm abbreviating these because I don't want to have to type it a bunch of times when I go to use this table. The uname for username. What order did I have these in? So I don't have to change it again. The order of this matters, as you'll see when we go to do our PHP. So what you're going to do is we're going to create our database handler. We're going to create our header file today, and we'll get as far as we can with our signup and our signup helper. Fname, lname, uname, password, and then the email. Password, oops, and email. Okay. So pretty much everything is going to be a varchar, which is basically like a string data type for MySQL. You have to specify a size. For those of you who have had plenty of experience with Java, this is very familiar for you. For the password, you want this to actually be a decent size one. Make it 120. Don't be skimpy. The username is going to just be 50 for pretty much everything else. This is the number of characters for each of these guys here. And for the default, if you were to just make one, it'll be null for each of these. We could have added another field where we get the timestamp for when they make an account. I don't see a particular reason to have it for this one. That's fine. So that looks pretty good. And for the comment, I'm just going to put user database for sign up and sign in. And this is just so I remember what I'm using it for. In the case of like an enterprise kind of environment where things aren't necessarily as neatly or intuitively named, it would be very helpful to have comments, the same as it is with code. All right, so you should be able to browse. Again, if you get an error that looks something like this big old red guy, you're going to follow this instruction right here. Open up a terminal, copy and paste that in. You'll probably have to put your password for the sudo user, which will just be whatever your password is for your account. So in the case of the VMs that I provided, it's CS230. And in the case that I'll be doing. So there's a couple of ways that we can add our records here. You can go and insert, and this will allow you to put in values right here. There's also functions that you can use with these, but we're not going to do that. We're going to actually do it through our actual web application on our sign up page. All right, I'm going to go and create one more database table for this project, and it's actually going to come in handy not with the next one, but the one after. So that'll be 2 labs from now. We're going to use this profiles table. So this PID is going to be the profile ID. And what's going to happen is we're going to have their first name, their username, and we're going to have the profile pic. Now, we're going to actually create a default. Although this is going to be varchar for all of these except for the PID. Okay, now this works great. Wonderful. All right, we're going to check that box for auto increment for this PID. This is going to be our ID field. Whenever you can, make one of these. Otherwise, you have to use one or more of these other types of fields in order to build a key that will allow you to uniquely identify a particular record. So these varchars are not really special. Those are going to be size 50. For the profile pic, we'll also do size 50 or so. I don't imagine someone's going to have too long a value for their file name. But what we're going to do is we're going to go to the internets and we're just going to find ourselves a picture. So I like Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty. So do I want indifferent Rick? Do I want smug Rick? Definitely not this one. I'll get jail Rick. That's fine. And I'm going to save this image as default.jpg. And that's going to go in here. in my CS230 in my images folder. I already have one there, but I'm going to overwrite this one. You won't already have one. You should name it default, and then whatever the file extension is. And the reason for that is because we're going to actually specify a path here using the default. So this default column right here under profile pic. And it's going to be as defined when you use this drop-down menu where it says none. And what's going to happen is whenever you create a profile, whenever you sign up for our webpage, you are going to get a default profile picture. And that's going to be ... /images / default whatever your file extension is called. So mine is default.jpg. You want to go in here. Let me open up this. You want to open up and see where what type of file extension is in your images folder, and make sure that this is in your images folder. You can close or collapse some of these folders so you can see where everything is. Make sure that your default image is within your images directory. Okay, and that should be. I'm going to make these null. These two middle ones are going to be null. Yeah, and then we're going to save. And don't have any errors. So we're going to keep moving along. So that's setting up the databases. And the next step that we're going to have is we're going to actually start building out the way our sign up page looks, and then we'll get to the logic behind it. And that's where you'll actually see these start materializing in the database, and we'll start working with the PHP.